of the sinful attitudes that exist in mankind is we have an intense desire to feel like we know, that we understand. And we desperately need this, or we think that we need this. We need to feel like we are, masters of truth, masters of understanding. And you see this kind of pride play out with people, where they confront people about their ignorance. And, the moment a person is ignorant about anything, it's taken as shame. It's taken as this trump card of exalting people because they know these things. And yes, there's a certain level of people professing to know things and that they don't know things, but we, if we're honest, as a culture, there's an intense pressure to act like you know everything, to act like when you try to say anything is true, you have to know everything about everything, or people are going to come and try and shame you. And this is a huge challenge for Christians, to be able to get out of that attitude and come into a position of real humility, where we are really sitting before God, seeking to know, seeking to understand, to be, to know what we do know, because God shows you things and you're allowed to know those things. But to not come into that pride, to not come into that heart of feeling like you have that sense of control because you feel like you understand how everything works, and Christianity becoming a means of that attitude and becoming a means of that pride, rather than opposing real humility, which is having an ability to really listen, having an ability to really sit before God and listen to what He is to teach us and to show us, and to not, get up and run off. I've read this book and I know this theology, and to think that we know these things, but really come to God to be taught and to bear the reproach of the world that wants us to feel shame for any level of ignorance, rather than trying to approach that ignorance and trying to bring that humility before God to be taught and to learn. One of the greatest challenges for Christians today, for God today with Christians, is that how much can He get past what we think we know? How much can He get past, us saying, oh, I know Christianity, I know these things. And part of the problem with that is that there's so much pressure today for Christians to go into that pressure, right? There's so much of that attitude in the church that if you don't feel like you understand doctrine perfectly and understand the cross this and repentance that, if you don't understand all these things, then feeling like you don't have any genuine faith. And that's the condemnation that people put on others. And that is coming from a worldly heart, because the world acts this way, and so do so many in the church. They act in that pride, and they make others feel terrified or contempt for what they don't know, and they oppose that humility. They're provoking people to that pride. They're provoking people to run in that same pride, and people feel that shame, and they rarely will acknowledge it. They'll just run to read all these books and run in that same pride, rather than really patiently laboring to actually understand God, to not profess to understand God until you actually understand God, and not feel like you have to lie about that and say that you know these things when you don't.